Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting, back to the Selectmen's meeting of Tuesday, March 8th, 2020. We're going to move on to the special town meeting articles. Article 8, affordable housing. And that would be Mr. Golden.
I'm sorry, I need Chris.
Okay.
Let me see.
You have to promote Mr. Golden.
I'm getting there.
No problem, Lee. Oh, that's right. You can see it too. This is a little more complicated. There we go.
Mary David, you're on.
Hi, good evening, folks. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is David Golden. I'm here to present on behalf of the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority, where I serve as the program director. I have a brief presentation, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you folks might have regarding our article. Is everyone seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Excellent. Again, my name is Dave Golden. I'm here for the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority. We're presenting on the special town meeting Article 8. Our proposal is to transfer tax title property to the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority from the care, custody, and control of the town of Plymouth to us. The property that we're looking at is 31 Strand Ave, and it is a relatively small property consisting of 0.25 acres situated between numbers 29 and 35 on Strand Avenue. We are looking to build an affordable housing unit, a single family residence on that property. In addition to coming before you folks, we received the unanimous support of the Advisory and Finance Committee last week, 2 weeks ago. We've also applied for federal grant money through the Department of Housing and Urban Development's Choice Neighborhoods Implementation Grant Program. We're awaiting a decision on that funding source. We really want to make this a community-based project, and so we've engaged the folks at Plymouth South High School's technical program in order to integrate students into the building project. You can see the in the bubble here to the left, the map of the property. Again, it's an odd-shaped lot, relatively small, situated between two existing single-family residences. And also, for your benefit, is the property record card from the assessor's office. I went out and took some pictures of the property. There's not much to show. It was after one of the storms, so it was significantly covered by snow. But what you could see was that the property is relatively undeveloped. There is a post fence on 3 sides, as well as a stock fence at the front of the property. It's not completely enclosed. You can see there are gaps in the fence at various points on the property. Most of the ground is covered by overgrowth and some downed trees. There is a small shed on the property that has additional fencing that is not connected to the rest of the fencing around the property. The shed was I believe non-permitted, installed on the property a number of years ago, and does have an electrical line running to it. The intention would be to demolish the structure and clear the lot before adding our single-family residence. The property that will be built will be, or the home that will be built will be a modest, likely Cape style home, and will be sold, as I said at the onset, at an affordable rate based on our market situation. So that's all I have. Happy to take questions from you folks.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Golden? Okay, we have a motion,
Motion to approve?
Second.
second by Mr. Blitzer. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you, thank you for all your work, Mr. Golden. Good job.
Thank you. Have
Good
a good
luck
night.
on that.
Thanks, David.
Article 2, I believe is Lynn Barrett Lee.
No, it's Lee Hartman. I'll take it.
Okay,
So we have, as you know, gone from 17 precincts to 18 because of the increase in precincts. We have an election coming up this year. We have additional election workers, school custodian overtimes, the automark programming, as well as coding and balloting, printing and voting booths. So we're looking for this year, for this election coming up, for $5,522 to be added to the clerk's budget to handle those increased costs for the new precincts.
any questions of Mr. Hartman? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Blitzer, second by Ms. Cavaco. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Article 7, Mr. Hartman.
So this is one the board is somewhat familiar with. As you know, since the power plant is no longer producing power, we're no longer able to have a pilot because it's a non-functioning power plant. And so what we're seeking to do is something very similar to do that some of the communities in New York has done, seeking special legislation, which requires a vote of town meeting and a filing with the state to seek state approval for special legislation to give us the ability to negotiate a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with Holtec for the, as I said before, the privilege of having us be one of the only communities in the United States that can store spent nuclear fuel. So again, gives us just one more tool to try to negotiate with Holtec to deal with, as I would say, the privilege of being able to be one of the few communities that has to store spent fuel on within the boundaries of the town of Plymouth indefinitely.
Comments from the board? Mrs. Cavaco?
Yes, as the board knows, and maybe the public doesn't know, is that this was a very important article to move forward for the select board. It was much discussion along with our special counsel, and I'm hoping this will pass through town meeting to be able to give our residents a little bit of relief on their tax payments. So,
Anyone else wishing to speak? Do I have a motion from the board?
motion to
Motion.
approve.
Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Blitzer. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Article 14, Mr. Hartman?
Sure. So I'm going to start with this one, and I know that Attorney Bill Sims is here representing the petitioner on this article, but I'll start. So this is a petitioned article, and I'll just do a quick share screen. So this shows the property we're talking about. So I'll just give you some history. So this piece of property, so we're located across from Dorothy Road and Lawrence Road, and this is South Meadow Road. We have the Catholic Church that is just to the north of these 5 residential homes. And then as you go farther south, you approach the airport. So what happened is in 1972, the town went for a town-wide rezoning all over. It was zoning that affected the entire community. And one of the things in 72 they did was create this airport district, which includes some of these privately owned properties, as well as the property that we know as the airport. Just before town meeting acted on that proposed rezoning, the property owner across the street, who owned the Dorothy Drive Lawrence Road property, which was undeveloped, filed a subdivision plan that protected them from that zoning change, and subsequently followed up and constructed that plan and completed that plan. So in 72, just before town meeting, the plan was filed. 72 in the town adopted the new zoning maps, and These 5 houses were built, constructed. These homes are now occupied, or 4 of them at this point are occupied. At one point, all 5 are occupied as single-family homes, and they were non-conforming because they're now in an airport district. What happened was, in 1997, the church purchased the one closest to the church property, and that's the one subject of the petition, and converted it to an office for the church, and held that for more than 2 years. And so it lost its non-conforming status as a home. And so now, fast forward to currently, the church decided they had no more use for this home as an office, sold it to a private property owner who looked to convert it back into a single-family home, and was denied by the building department because it doesn't have protected rights anymore. It's lost, I'm not supposed to use the term, but the grandfathering. It's no longer a grandfathered lot as residential. So the house itself can't be modified or can't be occupied as a home because it's an airport district. So what this zoning change is looking to do is to take these 5 homes, and they look and breathe like a residential neighborhood or residential area, and put them back into a residential zone. So these 5 homeowners can have their property, their home, the place they live, that they can continue to occupy it as a home and not have to worry about the nonconformity nature of having a home within an airport district. So generally, this would not be the type of article that I would support, which is conversion of commercial land to a residential. But in this case, it's very different because you have 5 homes here that already exist, have functioned since the 70s as 5 homes. And so I think it's the right thing to do to the 4 homeowners. In addition, that 5th homeowner, if this doesn't pass, will have no ability to use that house except to maybe try to make it available on the market for some commercial use, which I would argue is not really the best option for the other abutters, who would then have a commercial use sitting next to their homes. So again, I think it's one of those things that happened in the 70s. Nobody ever really cared until this issue came up recently about the loss of its status as a non-conforming lot. And again, I think the planning board is also looking at this article. Finance committee has supported it, and I would recommend that the board adopt this or support this article for this minor rezoning. Let these homeowners have homes and not be stuck in the uncomfortable position of being in a commercial zone. Bill, do you have anything to add?
Not much, Lee. I think you pretty much captured the essence of the history and the present situation there. I just would like to emphasize that I think there was an application by one of the other homeowners recently for some type of a minor modification to the house, a building permit, which had ended up having to go to zoning because of the house being rezoned into the airport district. So that's what's going to happen with anybody in those 5 homes. If they're in the airport district, they're not going to have the protection and of the residential zone in terms of modifications, additions, anything that has to do with their house. These kids, and I say kids, I mean they're younger than me, so anybody's a kid, I guess. But their purchase was completely innocent. They did not get great information on the time that they bought this, not knowing that they were in the airport district, thinking they were totally within the residential district and could simply, convert this property or modify it, rebuild, and found out shortly thereafter that they weren't. So I don't think this is going to create any kind of a hardship to any of the neighbors in that district. In fact, I think it'll increase their ability to be able to live, modify, increase whatever they have to do within their house in the residential district as opposed to the airport district. So I think it's really I don't think there's any objection by anybody there. My clients have spoken to all the abutting neighbors, and I don't believe anybody has objected. It's gone through administration and finance without any issues. So again, I would just ask the board to please support this particular article.
Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll wait a motion.
I'll
Motion
make a
to approve.
motion.
Do I have a second? Betty, you second it?
Yes.
Okay, so Harry and then Betty second. Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Event banners, Lee, would that be you?
Yes, it is. So
Okay,
this
you're
is an
lucky
issue.
tonight.
This is an issue that's come up a while ago. If you recall, prior to COVID, we had a banner that was, or banner poles that were located on Court Street, just as you get to the Court Street, Samoset Park Avenue intersection. And that banner pole was used for the Waterfront Festival, the 4th of July, Thanksgiving Parade. And it was a way to put a banner up and say, here is this event coming up, looking for people, another way to make the community aware that we had certain special events going on in the community. When we were dealing with the poles were older, they were undersized, so we looked to put larger poles in, and through kind of a series of situations, we found that the poles can't go there anymore because the one on the west side of Court Street sits right next to a electric conduit box. And so it can't be there. It can't be located there. We looked at a bunch of ways to try to figure out how we could put it there safely, and there really wasn't an option. So what we'd like to ask you tonight is we've come up through the DPW with 2 other options. One would be in front of Memorial Hall, and the other one would be down by Brewster Gardens, the Kankakee area. And so if it's not acceptable, either of those, we could look at another location. What I would look for tonight is just whether the board has a preference to either one of those or neither, and then we can work with DPW and I think VSB for additional funding to see if we can get those poles put back up. It is something that I think the community likes to see. So again, tonight we were just looking for a consensus if you're okay with one or either of those sites. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Any questions or comments for Lee? Mr. Flaherty?
Yeah, I think I'd prefer the near Memorial Hall. It's kind of near where the old one was, and it's sort of more downtown. Probably more people will go by it there. But I think either location is sort of in the same main drag through town. But that seems like if there's a preference for that, we can do it there. It's like a good choice.
Any other Mr. Helm?
I'm in agreement with Mr. Flaherty, but Lee, could you further describe the positioning around Katie's?
I think at this point, we just have a general location. We really didn't specify. So I think what we would have to do is come back on both of these sites and look at the particulars about exactly where they could go.
Yeah, just in terms of that, once again, I am in agreement with Mr. Flaherty, but I would add, besides to sort of a feel of a more central location, putting a banner that people have to read down at that intersection. It's a crazy intersection already, and I'm not sure that would really be the most wise. I'm not sure people would get time to read it, and those who did take time to read it would be endangering safety.
Mrs. Cavaco?
Would I be able to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, at this point, or is there more discussion?
Well, I'll call for discussion again anyway, so.
I'd like to make a motion to have the pole put in at Memorial Hall, in the Memorial Hall location for the event banner.
I'll second for discussion.
Second by Mr. Bledsoe. Discussion. Okay, although I have to add, Lee, is that down by Memorial Hall, just kind of be, mindful of the church that's there. Actually, there's 2 churches there. But one is up level of, like St. Peter's is to go up that high. I'm just thinking the cosmetics and what might be going on there. Pictures, other than that, I'm good with either side. All those in favor? Unanimous. Town meeting update, virtual, in-person, hybrid. Mr.
So we have-
Ahmed,
Thank you. So we have this posted for this week, and we also have it posted again for next week to give the board an update. So the update that I have is the town council has checked with, I see some other names here, I'm sorry. Town council has checked with the Attorney General's office, and again, there's no new information. The same position from council is that hybrids are not permitted at this point. We worked with town council and with Matt Moratori, and Matt has filed legislation to allow for hybrids. I'm not optimistic that that'll be ready for this town meeting, perhaps for a future town meeting, but certainly we'll keep working on that and we'll give you an update next week. So that's where the hybrid sits. And again, right now, the only option the town has is for virtual only. And I would once again recommend that the board vote to authorize, if town meeting chooses not to go virtually by their vote, that we have a standby second option, which would be April 16th in person at Plymouth North High School.
Mrs. Cavaco, then Mr. Helm.
I actually was just going to make that motion, but Mr. Helm, if you have discussion.
Well, not discussion, but a question for Mr. Hartman. Lee, you mentioned that if this is not in place, that the date of the town meeting would move to, and you didn't define
Yeah,
when
so
it
what
would, you mentioned things that would have to occur that would delay it beyond the 16th. Could you go into detail?
So what would happen is if we leave it as the vote is now, which is only a virtual option with no option for open, and if town meeting by a majority vote says, no, we want to do it in person, we would then have to go back out and repost the warrants for the annual and special and go through that whole process again of giving notice and picking the location and just again, re-advertising the whole town meeting for some future date certain. So this way, if town meeting chooses not to, we just automatically have a date as a fallback.
So what would that, given a reposting, et cetera, what would that date be?
Probably a 30-day versus the 2 weeks that we have here.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Cavaco,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that should town meeting vote not to go virtual, that we schedule the town meeting for April 16th in person.
And that would be 8:00 a.m. at Plymouth North.
8:00 a.m. at Plymouth North.
do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Bletzer. Discussion or questions or complaints? Mr. Helm,
Discussion. I would just like to point out that we've been given two options here. If town meeting, which is their right to do and actually their duty to determine whether it will be virtual or in person, if at the virtual meeting on April the 2nd they vote no to virtual, okay, what we're passing here would move town meeting to April 16th. The acting town manager has told us that the alternative is 30 days after April 2nd. And I would just like to point out once again that twice in last week's presentation, the town moderator made it very clear that he intends to continue if town meeting votes against the virtual. He has the authority and by state statute, and the fact that he told us this twice, and this is if the past is prologue, I have to believe that he will continue it for 30 days. So I'm not sure where this really gets us, except for kind of making us look happy in the moment, because the real thing's going to happen at town meeting.
Well, I would say procedurally, it makes it a lot easier for staff. Second is if he's got 30 days, then it's going to be 30 days from the vote for that date. So at least we'll get us 2 weeks in advance. So if we wait 30 days to post and then he delays for 30 days, that's 2 months versus at least posting in 2 weeks and then having the 30-day delay come from there. So I still think that this is a better approach to get us there sooner, and it's only an option. It's not, mandatory.
Patrick?
No, basically the same that Lee said, that, we're presupposing an action the town moderator would take in the event that there was a no vote. And I think that would have to be evaluated at the time by the moderator, and then it would be his decision at that point. So I think there's value in putting this through.
I would also say it gives people time to understand what the two consequences are versus a vote of town meeting, not the whole town meeting, stopping and then coming up with some other date later that people aren't even prepared for.
Mrs. Cavaco?
And now if this motion didn't pass that I have just made and it was seconded, would we have to reprint all the books and do all that? Okay.
No, we would just have to repost the warrant, and we would have to go re-notify town meeting members, probably give them a new mailing to identify the new time and date. And we would have to work out the logistics. We know that the 16th works. If that doesn't work, we'll have to then again go through the schools, PAC TV and other groups to find another date that's suitable. It might be more than 30 days off, depending on what happens and what the availability of the school is, and the PAC TV people and the electronic voting.
And I do believe that legislation was filed, so you
Yes.
never know. They might move fairly quickly or not.
Mr. Helm?
Another question for Lee. Should the town moderator, should town meeting vote against virtual, and the town moderator continues it for 30 days, does the town need to go through the process you outlined of the reposting, et cetera?
I don't know the answer to that. I think if we have a time and date certain he chooses to delay, I don't think it would have to be a reposting. But I'm not 100% sure.
Does anybody recall from the town meeting when COVID first hit?
Derek had his hand up.
Yeah, Derek?
Yeah, through the chair, no. If the moderator were to enact his authority to delay town meeting because of an emergent event, which I think COVID would be considered one of them, he would then go ahead and then just set the date on the day that he delays it. So we wouldn't have to repost. We wouldn't have to go through that process.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Flaherty?
Oh, that just recalling the COVID things, just what Derek said. So
Thank you. Any more discussion?
Chairman Quintel, I would say there are a number of people on. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to this.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this?
I think they have to raise their hand to let
Yeah.
Lee know.
Right. And I'm
Their
not,
little,
I am not seeing.
okay. Meaning their virtual hand, not their
Yep.
hand.
No virtual hands that I see.
Okay, all those in favor? Charlie, you opposed?
Yep.
So you're in favor? Okay, I couldn't see your hand. I got
That's
it.
right. There's already-
Okay, unanimous. Passes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Quite welcome. Town managers report.
Well, I have just a few things to report. So first of all, we just got notice from the clerk's office that our final precinct updates have been approved by the state. She's in the process of working with the state to get our voter list out and identifying where people will be voting and working to get those letters out to voters, notifying them of any changes to their precinct and where they will be voting. So that is in process. Also, another reminder, as I did last week, plenty of test kits here anybody interested in test kits. We're actually talking about expanding the availability. So for example, if there's a group such as the VFW, the Legion, other types of groups like that that might be interested in grabbing a few boxes to make them available, we would encourage that. But if you want some test kits, we have plenty of them available to the community. The next thing I would report is if you look at the town's main webpage, I'm going to just look at it real quickly now myself. There is a new reporting mechanism that says report a road hazard. So if you go to the main page, actually I can even just show it. Maybe. So if you go to the town's main website page, you'll see in this Citizen Action Center, report a road hazard, and I just clicked on that. And so we have a new section where you can report a road hazard, where the location, where it is located, and the type of hazard you have. So a new way to, again, communicate. We understand we have a lot of issues with potholes and this season, so we do have that up for citizens to report any issues with road hazards that are out there. And I believe that's all I had for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Mr. Hartman, is there anybody wishing to speak on a public comment?
Do I see some hands raised yet? It would be your virtual hand. I do not.
Okay, well, if we miss somebody or you miss somebody and you see a hand up and I don't see it, just remind me, Lee.
Yes.
Because we like everybody to feel welcome. Okay, going on to licenses, I believe. Golson Incorporating, doing business as Trails End Bistro.
Motion to,
Common victual license, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Betty.
motion to approve.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Dillon's Local is requesting a one-day wine and malt license for March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, from 9 a.m. to 12 a.m.
Motion to approve.
Second by Mr. Bletta.
Yep.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. We have 8 administrative notes. Any questions, or does the board want to take any of them separately or move them all? What's the wish of the board?
Motion to move as a group.
Second.
Damn it. Oh, could I, before we do that, could we just
Sure.
take number 3 separately?
Okay. So that being said, could we have the motion excluding number 3, Betty? Or
Yes,
whoever made that thing?
motion to approve the administrative notes 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Administrative note number 3, collective bargaining agreements, April 2nd to the Springtown meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bletzer. Discussion? Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you. And this, buddy, I prepared a little thing I just wanted to read because I want to make sure I said my words right. But it has been something through this process that I've really, really weighed heavily on how I've voted and decided and sort of the things that I had requested and my reasons why I'm voting against this. I wanted to have an opportunity to just explain through and leave that out there. So, just, it's not too long, but I think it's important for me to read this so I can explain my personal vote here. So I say to explain my position today, I want to take a minute to quickly review how we got here. And every time a campaign season comes along, inevitably you hear how Plymouth is much like a $250+ million business. And you hear how the town should be looking ahead and planning for the future. And I absolutely was one of those people when I ran for this seat. And in January 2020, after going through my first budget cycle as a member of the board, I made a statement in open session. And the statement was how I was dismayed at how Plymouth's budget planning lacked forward-looking forecasting to know how current decisions would be affecting the future of Plymouth. The last line of my statement on January 20th, 2020 was, let's get on board with a 3-year vision of our town's financial position so we can make financially responsible decisions, take a long view of Plymouth's future, get out of this 1 year at a time cycle, and stop planning to spend money that we may not have. And after that, immediately, a motion was passed that through town management, a 3-year budget forecast would be created that included all departments, debt forecasting, any other items obligated to be added or increased to the budget, and debt that falls off, so we know where that spending is. The bottom line is that we as a board would have the baseline budget for the next 3 fiscal years, once we factor in those obligations, and the corresponding revenue forecast. So at that point, we had an agreed upon plan of how the select board would approach financial planning. We're on our way. Shortly after, a financial modeling tool was developed where town management could forecast future budgets based on dozens of variables down to the department level. It accounted for how much every expense would increase using historical averages over many years past, including debt, capital expenditures, all revenue sources, including state funds, local receipts, property taxes, estimated new growth. It also included the whole school budget as well. It was our whole entire budget. I thought this was a great step forward for the town to allow the select board to begin looking ahead and planning for the Plymouth's financial future. The select board then after that voted for our new financial policy, and it was a simple policy. It was that we would always have the next 3 years budget projections available to see how the decisions we were making that day would affect the coming years. I thought that was a very good step in the right direction. So now in January of this year, we as a board voted to approve this upcoming year's budget after going through the complete annual vetting process. And since then, the select board has voted to add millions and millions of recurring dollars to that already approved operating budget. I had been requesting all throughout that process to be provided the forecast that shows how these budget increases affect Plymouth over the next 3 years. And it was eventually received last week, a few hours before the select board meeting, that we had to approve the final amended budget as a board. So it has been made clear to me that there's not an interest in budget forecasting to see how the decisions we are making today will affect Plymouth in the future. But before there's any attempt to make my statement a management versus employees debate, I have to say I completely agree that Plymouth needs to set wages to be an employer of choice, attracting and retaining great staff. However, during this process, without being able to see any future budget projections, I could not responsibly vote to approve these agreements, which add recurring annual operating costs indefinitely. I felt like we were being asked to make an 8-figure operating budget decision in the blind, and that is why I can't support this amendment or this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flaherty. Any other comments or discussion on note number 3, administrative note number 3? Mrs. Cavaco?
Yes, I appreciate Patrick making his comment, but you know, we do look to our finance director who has an incredible reputation. She, you know, the questions that we ask, I felt that she, you know, answered in a timely fashion. She gave us, you know, the confidence in moving forward. And you're right, Patrick, we have to do something with our employees and stop being the training ground for people to come in and just leave, because it's costing us way more money than it would if we had to actually give people a raise. But, you know, I always look to Lynn and our finance folks to give us guidance. I feel they have given us the guidance that we require. So I'm comfortable with moving forward and voting in favor of our collective bargaining agreements.
Mr. Flaherty, then Mr. Bletzer.
Yeah, and for sure, the numbers that Lynn and the team do provide are always of a quality that you know you can count on. However, the numbers that we were provided along the way were the cost estimates of the various things, the total dollar amount. We hadn't seen how it would look in the future. And that was where I had my areas of concern. But this has to do with the future budgets, not necessarily what it's going to cost this year and how it fits into the larger budget. In isolation, it doesn't give a good perspective to know how the decisions are going to affect, you know, 2, 3, 4 years from now, or at all, without that. And during this process too, I know there was an incredible amount of work that was done in a short period of time. But when we're being asked to vote on agreements and you hear things like, we hope this is right, we had to race to get this done, we're under the gun to do this, it doesn't inspire confidence in me that the amount of time needed to properly vet this was done during the conversations where we have to vote this. So that adds to my concerns of wanting to have a look at this with more time. Doesn't mean I don't agree this could be the path to go forward. I just felt like what I wanted to have for a comfort level to see what this board as a town had voted on to see fulfilled, and then make the decision. And we could at least then have a discussion about what it looks like in the future and not necessarily one figure that's right in front of us.
Mr. Bletzer, then Betty.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. I appreciate what you're saying and what Betty's saying too, but from my perspective, I'm proud of what we did. We found that that public employees, that town employees were underpaid compared to other towns. And we were losing. We were a training ground, as Betty said. We're losing people to other towns. And we were looking to retain our employees. And one way of doing that is to give them better wages and give them better benefits. And we've done that. And the negotiations were very smooth. Actually, there was everybody was respectful. They get done very quickly. Everybody's now being paid fairly. So I'm proud of that fact that everybody, there was give on both sides, but there was no arguments, there was no yelling and screaming. And Lynn and Marie, they did a fantastic job assisting, as Lee did, and Derek, Barry de Blasio helping out, as well as the other selectmen that were involved in the different negotiations. But I'm very proud as a board member that we get this done. We hired a new town manager. Our next step now is let's get some economic development going. That's another thing that's been lacking for the last 10 or 12, 15 years. So that's the next thing we want to get done when Mr. Brindisi gets in here next week or the week after full time. So get some economic development. So I'm very proud of this, and I think that it's going to be a lot better. You know, Patrick was worried about the numbers, but I'm looking forward to having great revenue streams coming in the next few years, and some economic development that's going to help pay for all these salaries. So, thank you.
Mrs. Cavaco.
And Patrick, I'm not going to be, I don't want to argue with you, but I just have to say, with all the contract negotiations that we were in, all of our executive sessions, everything, I never heard from staff say, or Lynn or Marie, I hope this is right. I just wanted to make that clear. I've never heard that. I only missed one session in the past couple of years. So I just kind of want to put that out there as well. I never heard that said, and I look for all of our, I understand that, you know, the projections that you want, but we can't really project everything that we need to make that, make that forecast, I guess is what I'm saying, in my opinion.
Mr. Flaherty?
And to Charlie, your point, I 1000% agree with what you said about being an employer of choice, all these things. I have not a shadow of a doubt there. That was sort of separate from what I had been looking for. I had been looking for the confidence to know that those decisions, what we were making, is that going to cause a future issue where we might have to give up something else in town? Does it mean closing a school, closing a library, looking at an override budget? I don't know, because we never saw the numbers to understand what the impact would be. So that was the root of my concern, nothing to do with the merits of paying our town staff raises at all. And to Betty's point, I don't want to go and necessarily embarrass any town staff. That's not the point of that at all. But my point is that we had an agreement that we would look at certain numbers. There were a lot of projections, a lot of things that were done. And this was not a short period of time. This was weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of me asking for this. And it never came until hours before the meeting. And so that was where my concern was, that we hadn't had an opportunity to look and evaluate and then maybe discuss how to play into the bigger picture. And this is a really hard thing for me to do. I mean, I'm looking at every single town employee and saying no. I mean, I weighed so hard on this decision because I felt there was a principle here at stake, that I had said I would look at this as we made decisions going in the future. It's not an easy thing to sit here and say on TV to every single person no. It's very, very hard. So for me to make this decision, I'm saying that those numbers were so important to me and to what I feel the town, that I felt it was a disservice to not at least see them, to have a discussion about them before all this happened. And that's the point I wanted to make here by voting no, even though I know it would be inconsequential. I knew it would be going through, but I had to stand for my principle there. And this is not meant to be an embarrassing thing for anyone, but there's no other way to say it, to express why I'm voting no without sort of fully coming through this process here. So I hope you can just maybe not agree, but at least understand where I'm coming from with my vote.
I mean, I do.
Thank you.
Any other comments? This isn't a rebuttal to go with you, Patrick, but this is just my rebuttal to the people, as yours was. I've done this job many years. I've seen it come from different avenues, and I always respect, the recommendations of the finance director and her numbers. I granted you some of the agreements, and I was on many of, the schools, I think has 4 or 5. I also helped out with dispatch negotiations. I listened in one time on library, and some of those went to right before the executive sessions of our meetings. And that was going back and forth as MOAs, but as far, I saw the numbers that Lynn Barrett showed. She showed the next 3 years out. There was no sign of an override. And I'm not a finance guy like you and her, but what I saw, I was very comfortable with. And for many years, the town's dwelled on, you talk about looking out into the future. Well, we knew Holtec and Entergy was leaving. We knew we were losing $7 million there, but yet the town still chose to build a $45 million town hall. And it's beautiful. Okay, so different boards just look at it different and what they feel is important, and I get it. And you have every right not to support the raises of town employees. I get it because of the budget. or whatever your reasoning was. I mean, I'm happy, that I'm gonna lose a briefcase. When I say a briefcase, a carry case of just folders of negotiations going back and forth with each group. So I just don't want the public and town meeting members watching to think that there was no negotiation, with any of the groups that I was on. And some of them are still going on. So, I mean, that being said, and you're absolutely right. The new growth in the town is really slacked off quite a bit. I think the board ought to also put a graph up, and I've said it before, administration, of where do we want to be 4 years out with new growth? How do we get there? It's not always about taking the taxpayers and putting it on the backs of the town employees. And that's what's happened for many years. I've always was under the philosophy being told in school that, you're going to do out and you're going to negotiate with this, and that's it. Well, with this environment post-COVID, I don't know about your industry, but I can tell you in mine and some other people I've talked with, throwing money at a position isn't going to fill it. I mean, we got cafeteria workers starting at $14 and change an hour. A DPW dump truck driver at $15.75. I'm going to be honest with you here. You can come to me and peel potatoes and I'll pay you more than that. And I'm not saying it not to be funny, but that's how far some of these positions are behind in our community. I was told by the finance director, acting town manager, and Marie Brinkman, that they all went by the HR report that this town did, I think, before I was here. And in seeing that, even with these contracts the way they are, brings them with the 75% of the percentile in that group. So not with the lowest, and they're really not with the highest. I mean, I voted the way I thought was right and was right to the people. And some of these, I mean, the administrative assistants in our building, or I call, secretaries, administrative assistants, they were way behind, way behind. Dispatchers working three consecutive shifts. I mean, they can't even fill the positions over there. It's a safety thing. It's a hazard. We're missing 15 employees in DPW, 6 in the police offices, 2 at the fire department, and I don't see it getting any better, to be quite honest with you. I mean, so I want the people to understand where I come from. I hope people don't think I'm an idiot. I've done this quite a few years, and I just have a different opinion. And that's what makes life beautiful, I guess. That's why I'm so calm all the time, because everybody's got the right to their opinion, and that's what makes it work. And that's why we have town meeting. So, I mean, everybody did a good job. The numbers were vented. I understand what you're saying, and I also praise the model that you created. That took a lot of time, and I was very impressed with that. Very impressed with that,
No,
Patrick.
and I respect everything you said, and I cannot emphasize how much I agree with what you're saying about the town staff. And there's just one very tiny thing I just want to make sure, because it's really the whole key of what I'm saying, is that the budget projections for the whole town budget, that's what we didn't get. The projections for the increases of each agreement, we absolutely did get that, but not as the budget as a whole, because that's sort of like the crux of what I'm trying to say that I was looking for. And but I agree, and maybe we could have afforded even more raises. I mean, we don't know what the cap could have been to bring equity, because we didn't have a number or a goalpost. So maybe we could have raised town wages even higher if we had that number. So without seeing it, we don't know. That's where I get it. But I agree with everything you all said about the staff and the positions in that 100%. I just want you all to know that, and to the town.
Thank you. So, any other comments on note number 3? All those in favor? Patrick, that's a no. 4 in favor, 1 in, okay, just checking, 1 in opposition. Thank you. Moving on to committee liaison updates.
Mr. Chairman, before you go on, I just want you to know that there is someone that would like to speak in
Oh, I
our,
see that now. Thank you.
Yep.
Mrs. Cavaco. Mr. Hutchinson,
Thank you, Mr. Quintel.
I didn't see your hand. I apologize.
And that's okay, because I understand how these are sometimes difficult to manage, these Zoom meetings. I have to confess that I'm not clear on how this conversation drifts back and forth between things that got discussed in executive session and things that were open to people like me, to the public, to town meeting members. So Patrick mentions that there was a 3-year plan for revenues. Well, for revenue, a three year. How would you characterize the plan, Patrick?
Say it very briefly, it was back in March of 21 that we would look 3 fiscal years ahead from the current year we were in as we were evaluating budget decisions.
But it was an overall financial plan, was it?
It was voted in open session.
Oh, okay. But an overall plan, revenues and expenditures. It was, you were looking at both sides of the equation.
Just to look at what the future budgets would be, all sides.
Sure. Yep, I get it. For whatever reason, probably my own fault, never saw that model, and I would love to see it. And what this conversation has made me think is that I would like Lynn, who, by the way, I have worked with many times and found to be miraculous. I mean, she's wonderful. I would like her to do a presentation on that plan before I vote at town meeting. I'd like to know what this is all about. What are the policies? Is there a policy for paying town employees? I had heard at one point, and this was an informal conversation, that Plymouth, in presenting packages to potential employees, gave wonderful benefits and somewhat lower salaries as a policy. And if that's true, I would like to know that, and I'd like to know where that's written down. There are also things that I've had questions about. I'd put free cash as one of the items that I've had consistent questions on. You know, we had $11 million in free cash. I said, that's our money. And, you know, I understand that it allows for flexibility. We paid for the nuclear mitigation with it. I understand that it's useful. It's a useful tool, but, you know, I would also like to see a policy on free cash. And so all of these things kind of, this conversation has made me kind of sit up and take notice. So is it possible to get Lynn to give a presentation for us? Mr. Quintel.
I can ask her.
All right. That's all I can ask.
Fair enough.
That's all I had to say. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other hands up?
I don't see any.
Okay, committee liaison update. Seeing none. Designee updates. Old business. It's not really too old, but I want to thank everybody that participated in the polar plunge on Saturday. There was a lot of groups there. I know our police department was there. I believe there were 17 to 20 strong. Both high schools had youth teams in there. And there were many more. I mean, I don't want to forget anybody, but thank you all for showing up and making that event a large success. Anybody have anything on the letters? Oh, I'm sorry, Betty?
I'm gonna say old business
Okay,
and new business together. I had sent out our goals, our goals, the updated list of what we've accomplished and what we want to move forward to So the board, I believe the board has it. If not, I can resend it. I know Chris had it. So it's that time again. We need to update our goals. I believe Derek has a copy of it as well. I know I added a few things. I know Mr. Quintal added a few things. So for everyone else, it's time to add your few things. And if you don't have that copy, I can send it out to everyone. And one of the big goals, and after seeing what Lee had posted about there's a street thing, is that you know, one of mine is the 311 app for the town of Plymouth, because that really takes care of not only roads, but it takes care of everything. You know, potholes, there's an issue, there's, you know, something going on. So that's one of my top priority goals that I know Mr. Brandisi was involved in implementing that program in Worcester. Did I say that right, Derek? Worcester?
Close enough. What's the, yeah.
Worcester.
Worcester. So if the board could please get their goals together and send them in so we can make that an agenda item.
Okay. So in between, we had letters. Did anybody, oh, I'm sorry, Harry?
I just wanted to call attention. We all received an email from Nicole O'Brien about Pride Month, and the Plymouth chapter of the Pride chapter had been interested in asking Plymouth last year to fly the Pride flag at Town Hall during the month of June, but it was determined that it was too late in the game. So they have come forward now, well in advance, to make that request, and they've made it of us. And I'm not sure if it needs to be an agenda item or how we move forward with that request. And are they addressing, is Nicole addressing it to the correct entity?
Mr. Hartman or Mr. Brindisi?
I'm not familiar with this. I don't think the email came to me.
Okay, I will.
didn't see one either, and you know, and I could have missed it, but I didn't
You
see
can
it.
go forward to us and we'll, I mean, I think that's something we can deal with administratively, but
Okay. After the meeting, I'll forward it, Lee, to you and Derek and Dick. I'll make sure if you were not on it, I'll forward it to you, as well as any other select board members who may not have gotten it, but I think it was to the general selectman.
I thought I forwarded it to Lee. I could be wrong.
you might
I'll
have.
look.
I have one unopened email from you that might be it.
Ah,
There's always one.
there's always one or more.
As I say, just
That was
one.
my point. Anything else on letters? New business.
I have just a one.
Go ahead, Mr. Cavaco.
I know that there has been discussion for green lighting through town. So I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, if you want to make this an agenda item as a possibility to make a policy for green lighting throughout town. We keep talking about going green. I know this is one of your big, you know, big priorities. So if we're going to talk about it, we need to do it. So I don't know if you wanted an agenda item. I can make a motion to create a policy, or however you want to do it.
Yeah, I think we should put it as an agenda item and maybe get the energy committee there. And
Sure.
see how, you know, I know they've tried in the past because I've actually talked with them
Mhm.
a couple times about it before, selectmen. And they brought up some of these things and they ran into some roadblocks. So I'd really like to have them come in, get an update, because they've been on the list anyway,
Right.
and discuss it, because like you said, it's been discussed, and I don't see no action. So, you know, more action, I should say.
Mhm.
There is, I don't notice it, so. I'd like to be, and you know what, now that we're talking about lighting, I see there's a lot of street lamps out all over town. I
Right.
used to actually call the poll numbers in, but there's too many. I never seen this many. So,
Tough winter.
yeah. So we can get that on one of the following agendas, Mr. Brindisi, with the Energy Committee.
Yeah, we can probably do that, and we'll take a look at the, all the streetlights that need to be replaced.
Well, you know, maybe we can just get green ones and call it a day.
That'd be easy. That'd be easy.
So don't put a lot of hours into it. Let's see what the answers are first. All right. Anything else? Board? People of the public? I noticed the finance director, when we were at his meeting the other night, he asked at the end of the meeting if anybody wanted to speak on the public comment. And I thought that was very nice, so anybody out there want to raise their hand?
Virtual hand.
Yes, Betty, thank you.
I see no takers.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you
Second,
thank you. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Have a wonderful week and a good evening.